Hello and welcome to the Blues Focus podcast with me, your host, John Graham. Once again, many thanks for taking the time to either download or listen to this content. And if you're struggling to find it anywhere, then obviously a YouTube channel and anywhere you would normally download your podcast, you'll be able to find us, I'm sure. It's been a while, but I think if there's ever a week to get involved, it's definitely this one because so many people did at the weekend on and off the pitch. In true Blues fashion, which I have to say was fabulous to see. Before we get into it, Carl, good to see you, mate. Long time no see.
Yeah, long time indeed. Good to be back. Good to get the boys back together.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I think we'll judge that from the comments. And Tom, I mean, wow, we've moved on from the sort of roulette takeaway onto just items from the club shop. So
yeah, pretty much. I couldn't wear this on any other podcast realistically, so I might as well choose one where I can.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah. I think 10 out of 10 for the effort. I like it. Right, let's not waste any more time. I think the thing, obviously, we need to, I guess, cover off to start off with was I think over the last couple of weeks there's been a big build up to this game, not necessarily to do with anything on the pitch, but more to do with the ownership of the club. And yeah, I have to say, looking at the numbers of people that protested and, met down in Digbeth and walked up to the ground, I just think just tremendous effort from everybody. And Tom, you can probably give me a lot more detail of what it was, boots on the ground. But I think from all of the Blues fans that are sort of, weren't involved but watching on social media, then I think, massive thanks to everybody that did get involved, because I think it's come to the time now where, it's getting beyond a joke, I think is, to put it mildly. And there's been a build-up of that. There's been absolutely no doubt. And I think now it's got to a point where, I think direct action is needed, and what we get out of it, time will tell. But I'll go to you, Tom, as you were there. So just talk me through what happened and the atmosphere, and how did it all go?
Well, I'll tell you the story from my point of view.
Which you didn't wear that, did you?
No, I didn't. No. I have actually been thinking, do you know what? I hope we do like a crazy fancy dress sort of flag day, away day or something like we did at Preston a few years ago, because I would totally wear this. This would be my outfit for the day. But yeah, no, I was hoping to make the protest because I was waiting at the train station with my granddad to get off the train from Redditch, and it was like 10 minutes to go. And I was like, shit, I'm not going to make it, am I? I'm going to miss it. But no, luckily enough, I literally got there like 2 minutes before it started. And I instantly thought a lot more people turned up than I expected, because these things have been planned before and they haven't got quite worked out. I think the last time this sort of thing happened, only like 10 people turned up. So I can tell you quite comfortably well over 1,000 were there. I know, I think Birmingham Mail or Birmingham Police said it was just over 500. It was not just over 500. There were so bloody many. It was great. The atmosphere was amazing. Everyone was buzzing. It was all for the right reasons. It never got out of hand. Everyone just had a good time, enjoyed it. A few flares, big sing song, and marched down to the ground. It was great. Really enjoyed it. And then obviously it probably got a little bit more tense when it all started kicking off at the reception. But again, nothing, no one was harmed. Nothing was necessarily bad, unless you got hit on the head by a flare that was through in the air. There were a few of those. But overall, it was a good atmosphere.
Yeah, I think, you make the point that it was incredibly well attended and maybe been a bit of a few false dawns on this one. But Carl, would you agree that I think that the numbers that turned out really does sort of drive home, I guess, the pretty much 99% of all fans' feelings about what's happening behind the scenes in the club. And as I said earlier, I think it's just got to a point where, enough is enough, and whatever, and as somebody a lot more intellectually adept than me once said, by any means necessary. And I think we probably got there. So what do you think, Carl, about it all?
It was spot on. It was done in the right way, and I was really glad to see that, from where I was with it and from where I was in the ground, there was there was nothing nasty brought into it in terms of race or anything like that. But it was needed, and I think the message got through, and it was kind of hard for them to not ignore that. It's easy to, ignore a hashtag on social media. It's easy enough to do that, isn't it? You can mute certain phrases, you can go around blocking people, including local journalists and fans, all you want. But, it really hammered home that this isn't an issue that's going to go away. It's an issue that needs to be looked at, and that we want the answers. We haven't progressed. It's probably the politest way to put it at all in the last 5 years, although apparently we're at the start of another 3-year plan, 5 years into it, but never
Can't
mind.
wait, mate. Can't wait. The last one we were supposed to be in the Champions League with Jude Bellingham returning.
Exactly. So it's, I think the message is, if it hasn't been heard, it's certainly stoked that fire, if that makes sense. And I agree with some of the comments. I don't think there's any way this hasn't been picked up by the puppet masters back at Hong Kong and wherever. And I think it is absolutely the right time. And the fact that the numbers showed up that did shows the strength of feeling behind it all.
Yeah,
from where I'm sat.
I think it's probably worth mentioning that, I guess, culturally, the ownership, I think once you've got that sort of, I guess, profile in business or just in life in general, then, you should really be commanding respect. However, I think when you're operating in a different cultural environment, especially for football, and you're dealing with a lot of fans that come from a working class background, I don't think they fully understand that for lots and lots of people, every match day and everything in between is what we're all living for, and what makes a massive difference to all of us. And, now we've made a very direct, I think, protest. I think, culturally in China and certainly in the Far East, it can fall on deaf ears because the masses don't really have a say, but it's different here. And we haven't done it. And I think, Tom, it's great to hear that it didn't get to any racial connotations, because that's irrelevant. The reality is that there's been a lot of false promises. And don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not going to defend them. But, they didn't inherit Manchester City. They didn't buy Manchester City. And I think they made under, the previous chief exec, some just horrendous decisions that have just financially shaped where we are. But for me, I think it will have an impact. Quite how much, only time will tell. But what do you, just back to you, Carl, what do you think let's assume they're not going, because they probably aren't anytime soon. So forget the bullshit of the fans forums and just trotting out the same things over and over again. What do you think and bearing in mind we haven't got an endless amount of money, what do you think they can do? If we were going to try and give a little bit of advice of, this is what we're looking for, what do you think that is? What do you think they could do?
Well, I think it's twofold, isn't it? It's, first of all, although they trotted out that we're going to get better with communication again, which, to point out, they said that in the summer, if you remember, and this time last year and the year before that, that is ultimately what it needs to be. And I understand the cultural differences, but over here, fans expect to be informed of what's happening with their club, because we are that club. We are the DNA. We'll still be there when they've sold us in, hopefully sooner rather than later, but let's say 5 years. By the time they've gone, we're still going to be going to, hopefully, what is left of St Andrews. So, they need to let us know what is going on. They have to communicate with the club, with the club supporters even, and so I think that is really important. And whether that comes from the owners, whoever they may be, Zhang, Craig Gardner, freaking Ian Dutton, whoever it is, someone has got to communicate. Ultimately, I see other fans on other club social media asking questions around tickets or things like that, and they get responses from their clubs, Coventry being the best example of that I've seen. Our club goes silent. They don't do anything like that. So it's just that little bit of supporter engagement. I think back to when Monk was around and in charge, how much the fans felt like we were part of the club, and I think that needs to be a really key focus. I think the other focus for me personally, let's ignore the playing squad and all that, is not just the stadium. We know that's got to be fixed, but the match day experience in general. Do you know what I mean? Apparently, sort of my old man, we met at the ground on Saturday. We went to kind of different places and stuff before the game. Apparently, there were a couple of burger bars open around the main stand side this time, outside of the actual ground, but still kind of in the ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But things like that, you know, there needs to be, the experience just isn't there anymore. I used to love rocking up because obviously going to St Andrews, for me, it's a day out, like a really big day out, because obviously I live so far away from it. And it used to be so exciting when I used to turn up there. I used to love the smell of the burgers, and I think we all do. But that's all gone, and it's just the general, oh, what we're going to get served up this time. You can't hear the tannoy half the time in any of the stands, regardless of where you sit. So just the match day experience has to be so much better, because we need to, not just for us fans, you know, us older fans and the young fans, but the kids who are coming, you know, are 5, 6, 7 and coming for the first ever visit. They need to be grasped because they're the future of the club. So I think for me, those are two key aspects that really need to be looked at.
Yeah, and again, I'm not playing devil's advocate, but I think, you know, we can. There are probably two sides to the argument, but the one thing I would say, and this is where I think this is one of the reasons it's really, really disappointing now, is that when Bowyer came in, and let's park the issues with the stadium, because I think, you know, that's a completely different argument altogether. The comms did get better. And I remember seeing on social media lots of fans saying, is this our club? We're not used to this. And it just seems to me that they seem to at times do the right thing. But I think that the challenge is that they know what to do, but when the problems occur, whether it be we sell players, or we don't bring the right players in, or we're on a bad run, or the stadium's falling down, they lock down, because there are so many negatives. They're like, well, we just can completely go silent. And that's the worst thing you can do. Yeah. So I think, Tom, anything that, do you think there are any easy wins for them? Or do you think that well, there's not really been a relationship, but, you know, what would you be saying to them?
I'd have a lot to say, to be honest, but I think realistically, we've just got to a point now where they're playing the same old tune and everyone's sick of it. And, you know, they could say they're going to try and be better, but for one, yes, we've heard that before. And two, I think we're past that point of repair now. And I think that showed in the protests. You know, people are sick of it now. They're done with it. You could feel it in the atmosphere at St Andrews. There was one moment where literally everyone rose to their feet. Everyone in the stadium rose to their feet, chanting straight at Edward Cheng. And it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. And you really felt that finally everyone realised how shit this is. And to be honest, I feel like probably the biggest, I suppose, drive of this new sort of protest has been the recent articles coming from Al Majir, Daniel Ivory. And one obviously standout would be Dong Ren using the club credit card on his Netflix and stuff like that. It's like, right, okay, this is great. This is top stuff, really what you want to hear from a professional football club. And then you see your current, you know, chief executive at the club, Edward Cheng, tweeting to other fans on Twitter, oh, I am a bit naughty sometimes. And it's like, a bloke saying that is running our football club, and I am a tad worried. So, no, I think everyone's just had enough now. Like, they keep embarrassing themselves. Like, they're their own worst enemy, and the circus needs to stop. And obviously, you do, to understand the situation, I do feel like you have to do a bit of digging and to really understand where the frustration comes from. Because, you know, you could just sort of lay it out flat and look at the easy parts and think, oh, they invested this much money, then obviously it hasn't worked out. You know, obviously they've clearly invested though, so what's the problem? And it's like, yeah, but look what happened when we did invest. We ended up in trouble with the EFL, points deductions, different ideas, sort of managerial wise. We'll never truly know what happened with Gary Monk, to be honest. Or we won't for a very long time, and that's still a very sort of split pathway in itself. There's just too much. There's too much, so much failure. And I think the part that will always make it worse, and I think every Blues fan knows where they were the day Gary Rowett was sacked, because of where we were at that time as a club, and the squad we had was so close and tight knit. Like, just to go and spoil that to make that classic sort of new ownership statement. It's like what Hull are about to do. It looks like they might be parting ways with Grant McCann. And I think that's a stupid thing to do. I think Grant McCann has worked with his hands tied behind his back for a while now. And you think, if you were him, you'd be thinking, oh, great, he's finally coming in and sort of stuff, you get backed. But no, and I do think that's a common problem with general ownership in English football these days. They think, oh yeah, let's change the manager. This will make me feel like I'm making a great decision. No, that's not what you need to do. You just need to come in and steady the ship, invest gradually and invest the right way. Don't sack off the whole scouting team and then employ your mate who probably lives in his bedroom in France and go, oh, this Sam Cosgrove looks good because he scored like 18 goals in one Scottish pub league season. It's like, yeah, great, nice one. Which, by the way, the amount of goals Sam Cosgrove has scored in the Scottish division says it all about how high a level of football that actually is. And I've always been quite clear on this point that Celtic and Rangers wouldn't survive in the Championship. They would struggle, but that is an argument in itself. But no, there's just been so many mistakes, constant mistakes, and you can't even just blame it all on Dong anymore. It's them as a regime. And also the most annoying part is they are faceless at the end of the day. We're so in the dark. And I think we're all just sick of it now. It doesn't feel normal, and you'll always have that worry that something bad is around the corner, and we don't need that anymore. We've had enough of it. I'm sick of it. And just quickly, before I wrap up on my point that's very lengthy, so I apologise. You know, what Carl said about the match day experience, it's bang on. I was actually talking about this the other day to a couple of fans outside the ground. You don't hear Blue Nose fanzine, match day badges up the Coventry Road anymore. It's gone. He's gone. Badge man is gone. And all the burger vans going up Coventry Road are all gone as well. It's just everything's been stripped and it doesn't feel the same anymore. You know, even as little as being in the concourse, they don't even have the telly on anymore. Like, I loved going in the concourse, getting a beer and watching Sky. Like, you know, because there normally is a game on and you get to catch like the last 5 or 10 minutes of it. So no, a lot of things have been changed and ruined, and just the whole soul of the place has been ripped apart. And we just need a change. And I think the best change is a fresh start, new ownership. Hopefully not as shit as like the last 20 years of ownership has been.
It is a quick one, and you know, don't just flippantly say yes, but. Mike Ashley.
I knew you were going to bring this up. I had a feeling that you were going to bring up Mike Ashley today, and I don't care if he renames the stadium the St Andrews Sports Direct Stadium. I couldn't give a shit. Just
at least we know what Sports Direct is.
Yeah. At least we know who owns us. If he's willing to invest £50 million in Joelinton, then I have full faith in the man.
Yeah, Carl, would you? Because I mean, you know, I'll show my age here, and when I first started to see, a little bit after I first started going, but when the Kumar brothers ran Blues, and this is probably the only point of reference I can give, because it was so bad. Really, I didn't understand the club, didn't understand anything, and it was an absolute farce while they're in charge. And it is, you know, it is now for lots and lots of different reasons. But, you know, and I was also there when people were calling for the Golds and everybody else. And coming from the Kumars to that, you know, new stadium, albeit probably not the best contractors in hindsight. It was a night and day shift. Investment, players, managers fit for the purpose at the time, you know, Fry, Francis, Steve Bruce. There was always that progress. There was always seemed like the 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 7-year plan. It seemed like it was real and they talked about it. I think with what we have at the moment, I mean, Tom, you alluded to it. You would not have Mike Ashley give somebody like Harry Redknapp the keys to the kingdom. You wouldn't, because there's just no way that, you know, when we went in and basically paid Brentford to build their new ground, which we've basically fucking done, and not only pay through the nose for a player that's gone, a player that is going to go, and a player that's, in fairness, been decent for the club. But when they signed, the cumulative earnings were about 100 grand a week for those 3 players. So I think they were naive. So again, they've been burned and they don't want to be burnt again. But I just think it's that complete and utter lack of understanding of what's needed. And Tom, I mate, you're absolutely right with Rowett. And I was thinking about it today when we were just sort of thinking about what we're going to talk about. And I think, for me, Bowyer, he's got more than capable of getting us to that knocking on the door. I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that. I genuinely do. And that seemed to be quite a way away for a number of seasons. But ultimately, it's going to be what's behind him and upstairs. And so, Carl, I mean, do you think that a Mike Ashley would be fit for purpose now? And whether it would be that his 5-year plan is improve the club, get us up and sell us for 4 times the amount, probably to another bunch from Hong Kong?
Yeah, no, like, do you know what? I think it is at that point, because ultimately, whatever the issues were with him and Newcastle, the Newcastle fans, at least he's a face, he's a businessman, and he knows what he's doing. You know, Sports Direct, okay, with arguments under, you know, 0 contract hours, whatever else there is, they're a business. He knows what to do. Do you know what I mean? He isn't going to do what has happened here, where, you know, the stadium has fallen apart, where there isn't the investment in the match day experience, because he knows that if the match day experience is good for fans, they're going to spend their money, aren't they? And that money helps revenue for the club, which means he can keep investing. And it's a complete thing. And I think our owners don't quite get that. And I absolutely would. And I, similar to Tom, I had a conversation with, I think it was a couple of my mates that I kind of like play FIFA with online and stuff like that. And we were talking about it, and he was like, would you really take it? Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because ultimately, well, not only that, whilst he wasn't necessarily incredible at Newcastle, whatever their views on him are, they were still top end of the Championship and Premier League for all of his tenure.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you know what I mean? So he knows what it means to own a club in England. And I think that is essentially what you need. You need someone who doesn't just get the business acumen. I think this is really crucial here. It's someone that gets the football side as well.
Yeah.
Or will surround himself with people that do. And I think that is one of the biggest issues we've had, is that they've tried to run it the way that they might run a business elsewhere. And obviously a football club is completely different to that business.
Yeah. I think with him, did he put his hand in his pocket? Yeah, absolutely he did. But the difference between us and Newcastle, there is no, I don't believe, and I wouldn't want to speak for everybody. We know what we are and we know where we are. We don't feel any level of entitlement at all. Our expectations, I think, are probably realistic. I think if you ask most Blues fans that, you know, between our age groups from, you know, 20 up to 50, then we've all had a bit of thick and thin. I've probably had a bit more thin than you two. But, you know, ultimately, challenging for the playoffs and every now and again getting a promotion. You know, that's been the way forever. It's only really been recently that we've just been nowhere near it. So I don't think if you've got where the Mike Ashley piece fell apart with Newcastle is because they wanted to go back to being the Champions League. Well, you know, unfortunately, when they were playing in the Champions League, you didn't have a Man City with the money they've got. You didn't have, you know, a very, very strong Chelsea. You know, that was pre-Abramovich. You got people, you know, Spurs spending £1 billion on this stand. It's a whole different landscape completely. Yeah. But I just genuinely believe the one constant with Blues is we know where we are, we know where we're at. And, you know, the last 5 years haven't been good enough, even on those very manageable expectations. We're not asking for the world. But I think what we are asking for is, you know, I know, yeah, they got absolutely burnt by Harry Redknapp's spending spree. But since then, we've had a decent chunk of change in for 2 really good players to the tune of probably close to 50 million and 30. And, you know, we've signed fucking Jonathan Lecco. Do you know what I mean? It's just that is not for anybody. You know, Mike Ashley, you pick anyone. That isn't where anybody's expectation is. You know, a bit of investment, you know, being able to buy Riley McGree when it's blindingly obvious what's required, 2 million, 25 grand a week, he would have never left the club. He would never left the car park. So, it's just things like that where they seem to be bereft of really, really easy wins at the moment. So for me, I think that the short-term measure, and Carl, we briefly talked about it before we came on, what seems to me, they've got the right manager, and we'll talk about him probably next. I'm absolutely over the moon with the job that Craig Gardner's doing. I didn't think he had it in him, I'll be brutally honest. So that's me being completely wrong. Bringing Martin O'Connor into the club is a no-brainer. So you've got that bang on. And it contradicts what they're doing, because it seems to be, whether that's Bowyer having a lot of control purely on the playing side, it seems to me that must be happening, because, the board ain't recruiting Martin O'Connor. I can promise you, they don't even know who he is. So there's control there. And if they would just go one further step and appoint a chief exec that knows the game, doesn't have to be, give a shit whether he's English or not, but knows the game, pedigree in some sort of European football decent league, that's run a club, that knows how to communicate and can be the go-between between the fans and the owners. So we've always got somebody. I just don't understand why they wouldn't do it, because they've got to see that silence, just a closed shop mentality, is killing them. Because, that protest in front of the directors' boxes or the, directors' seats, I'm telling you, nobody wants that. And if I know Blues like I do, that's happening every single home game. And it will get worse. Irrelevant of the scores. Because, as I said, Blues fans, once they get to a point, it's over. And as much as I've tried to play devil's advocate, I want them out. 100% I want them out, because they've made too many mistakes. And the policy with players and not signing players and everything else, enough's enough. But let's try and look at the positives from the weekend, and certainly from the protest. I was getting a little bit concerned. There seemed to be a few people, quite a growing amount of people, that were calling for Bowyer. And I swear to God, I don't know anybody can get to that point. So for me, delighted that he got so much support before the game, and certainly during the game. I haven't heard that for a long time at St Andrews, so just over the moon with that, and that will probably put his mind at rest a little bit, where the anger is leveled, and it certainly isn't at him. So, Tom, do you still think that he is the man? Have you got any concerns, or where do you think we are with him?
No, I do. I fully believe he is the man to take us forward on the pitch. I think what fans probably get frustrated with the most is the formation. That's quite evident, and some people, will jump into that Bowyer out category. If we lost one game, we could lose to Fulham and not lose a single game all season, and there would be one knobhead who's like, Bowyer out, it's not the right way. We need to play 4-4-2. It's like, yeah, right, yeah, cool, nice one, mate, move on. But at the end of the day, I did get to a point sort of like, okay, look, every time we seem to switch to a 4 at the back, we play better. So, I think obviously we saw at the weekend when we did beat Barnsley, we did switch to that 4 and we won the game. That's as simple as it sounds. I do think that, 4 at the back won't get you very far sort of in this league now if you want to push those top ends, because every single top team is playing 5 at the back now. Like wing backs has become so popular, and to be honest, it was more or less ever since Wolves did it a few years ago, everyone sort of followed suit, and you see them all doing it. So I do feel like it's the right system to play later down the line, but we've just not actually brought in the players to play it. And that is also another slight frustration is, if we want to play that system, why do we keep bringing in players that necessarily don't fit it? Like Onel Hernandez on paper does not fit the system we actually play. But I'm glad we signed him because he's an absolute baller. But, it just doesn't, sometimes you just question, like, are we actually looking at building sort of a team, or are we just trying to get through the season? Because that's how it feels now. I think we're just trying to get by for this season. But does it feel like there'll be any investment later down the line? Obviously, Bowyer has clearly been lied to about investment, let's face it. And I don't think that lie will ever change. So it's hard to sort of have the belief that we're looking at the future when so many clubs beat us to signings all the time now. Like, Bidwell going to Coventry, James Hill going to Bournemouth. And now I need to be brutally honest with the James Hill one as well. You look at Bournemouth's squad, James Hill isn't getting into that back line. And I think, or at least not for a long time. And Bournemouth are a tiny club. Bournemouth are tiny. Blues compared to Bournemouth is like, a bin compared to a bloody Empire State Building. Like, they're just so different. Like, Blues are huge compared, but Bournemouth have good owners and they've got football people in the club. Whereas with our owners, someone has gone, oh, let's buy this club. It'll look great on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and be a great listing for us, lads. Oh shit, we have to employ people to go and look after it. Oh, okay, some of my best mates from like school and stuff when we used to probably play fucking Squid Game or something, and he's just gone, oh, Chengi, yeah, you'd be good at a football club. What's a football club? Oh, you'll find out. And that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like, the sort of people we've put in charge. It doesn't feel like, you look at their actual job history, they've done nothing like this ever. Like, there's no experience. Even with Dong Ren, there was no CEO experience, particularly anywhere near football. And Edward Cheng's the same. There's no experience. And we wonder why we're in tatters. It's because we have embarrassments behind the scenes. And, they have tried at times, and you have to sort of look at some small positives that they have done, which is great. But look at the large amount of negatives, and one definitely outweighs the other. And I just can't be bothered anymore. I'm so sick of it. It's just depressing. Everything's been stripped and I want them gone. I'm finished. I did go and join in with that protest in front of the directors area, to be fair. And the only person I felt sorry for was Craig Gardner, because, he can't exactly just be...
I was going to say, he probably wanted to get involved, mate.
Exactly. Like, I'm sure, he might have his own feelings about it, but at the end of the day, Cheng's his boss. He can't really do much. And you want someone like Craig Gardner at the club, so you'd never want that to be jeopardised. No. Because we're lucky that there is even, someone that we know of as our technical director. They could have just gone and pulled some random bloke from Cambodia or something. I don't know.
But I think on that, there always comes a point where I think that they've got whatever asset it is, they've got to protect it. And however, don't get me wrong, they would prefer to have anybody other than Bowyer. I'm absolutely certain they'd want a yes man that would implement all their ideas. But over time, they've understood that they don't actually know what they're doing. And as soon as they try and take a bit of control, the whole thing goes to shit. So this, I think, is them kicking and screaming. And I have no doubt they've got it in the locker to bin him out. They could blow him into the weeds at any point, and it wouldn't surprise me.
They probably do it to piss us off, to be honest. I wouldn't surprise me.
But this is, again, it ultimately comes down to what motivation is there for them to do that, because all it is going to be is a cost. All they're going to do is hemorrhage money, and it'll probably go into administration. They'll lose it anyway. So I think, like I said, there seems to be progress with the people that they've got in on the footballing side. So, Carl, are you still happy with Bowyer?
Yeah, 100%. I think I wish he'd follow his own advice sometimes. He came in last season. I know his directive was to keep us up by any means necessary. And the first thing he said in his very first interview was keep it simple.
Yeah.
And that's that. And I agree. I'm not sure that 4 at the back is the way to go for the modern football club. But like, ultimately, we don't have the players to play the system that the big boys want to play and that Bowyer wants to play. So you literally have to go back to playing to your strengths. And look what happened at the weekend. We went to 4 at the back with 4 in the middle and the big man, little man combo up front. And what happened? We won 2-1, and we should have won more. We should have had 2-3 goals more than we did have. And I think that I just wish that he wouldn't sometimes it feels he's beating a bit of a dead horse. Do you know what I mean? Like, he will get the system in, whether it's working or not. And that's my only real frustration, is that, and I that Tom obviously mentioned that's where it is. But other than that, I think he is the right man for the job. I think players have bought into him as a manager, with the exception of maybe a couple, which obviously are no longer in or around the squad on a regular basis, it would seem. So yeah, I think he is. And like you sort of said before, John, before we came on, who else is there that we would want in? Who else? And yeah, there are managers out there in the ether sort of mixing around, but who else really is there? Do you know what I mean? Bowyer gets the club, he gets the fans. And like you said, with O'Connor coming back, with Craig Garner at technical director, with other people, I think one of the academy bosses has got links to Blues previously as well. So with these people coming in who get the club, why wouldn't you want someone in that role who gets it? And I think one of our biggest problems is keeping sacking managers. You can't build anything if you keep sacking managers and you hemorrhage money by paying them off. I dread to think how much money we have spent sacking managers that could have been used to buy Riley McGree.
Yeah, I
things
dread
like that.
to know Karanka's payout. Oh, that turns my stomach.
Well, I mean, it'll be well into seven figures.
Yeah. But I would stick with him for now, for sure.
Yeah, and I just don't think that. I don't think he's. In any walk of life, you want to have the ability to control your own destiny, to make decisions, be responsible for those decisions, be accountable for those decisions, whether they are, if they're good, fantastic. You'll see the results. You'll get improved contracts. If they're a shower of shit, you put your hands up and say, "You know what, I got that wrong." And he hasn't had that yet. He still hasn't had that. And I think, just moving on to, I think, and it's linked to the owners, of course it is. And it's this, that over the last, I don't know, but a long time, I think, given the financial situation of the club, this reliance on loan players. And I think with Bowyer and Gardner, and I'll let you guys sort of maybe highlight a few, just made a real positive difference to what we're about. But obviously it's a double-edged sword. Loan players, when they come and it comes off, then you lose them, or if they get injured, then they've made a massive difference. Then it's the same result. But the one thing I would say about Bowyer, and one of the main reasons I think he's got a big future at the club, he's not scared to make a decision. So how many managers wouldn't make the Harley Dean decision? How many managers, it was obviously really had a personal link with Lecco. I think he absolutely was desperate for him to succeed, gave him every single chance that he could. But when push came to shove, he got him out of there. Same with Anike. I mean, again, I think we all said would have absolutely loved Anike to become a cult hero at the club because he's a bit of a throwback player. He isn't good enough. He isn't good enough in front of goal. And it is as simple as that, in my view. So you get him in for nothing. And, there may be more to it than that. Maybe, someone, Charlton will come back in and give us 300 grand. We want 300 grand. It's irrelevant what we think about him as a player. But to me, we've cut our losses, probably haven't lost on the deal. You get him out and you get somebody else in, like Hernandez, maybe just on loan. So that's, for me, is one thing that I really like about Bowyer. He's not scared to make a decision that's going to be difficult, where he may lose a bit of face over it, because so many managers just we've had them just keep plugging away all of the time. And, and he hasn't had, one of the, I guess, the only shining star from last season in Sanchez. He hasn't had him. So, and I'm not saying whether he'd fit. I don't know whether he'd fit. I'm now lost. I have no idea what the best system is. I don't know who I'd play. Whereas, when we first started this fucking journey about a year ago, I sort of knew what we were doing. And now I think that you see these loan players coming in and you see what's possible. But, you're then down the McGree road and it's like, what is the point? I think I said on the last pod, what's the point of playing him if he's going to go? Because all we're going to do is rely on him. And then when he goes, it's like, well, what are we going to do now? And that's exactly what happens. I didn't quite think it was going to happen the way it did, but it did happen. So, Tom, just on the loan signings, just talk us through the business that we've done. and talk us through where you think we're going to go, because we're linked with another shitload of players, and you're far better positioned to give the lowdown on that than I am.
Yeah, I think, you look at the players we signed in this January window. The loan signings are all good deals. Like, they are good deals, but obviously the frustration is, we need actual players. We need permanent players that are assets of Birmingham City Football Club. And it's great getting the loans in, but then they'll probably go on to different things next season. I can sort of understand if their contract runs out at the end of the season. That sort of makes sense. Bringing them in on loan might make us, more of an appealing place to come if you've already played here for a bit. So if you targeted those kind of players, then it would be sort of a good method. Mengi's been good so far. I think he's been one of the faster central defenders we've seen at Blues for a long time.
His pace is ridiculous, isn't it?
Exactly. He's acrobatic, he's strong. But for me, my biggest sort of plus...
It's not fucking Cirque du Soleil.
No, but you should see him. The way he jumps, everything, just his general athleticism is better than we've ever had. He's not a ball playing centre back, that's for sure.
He said he was.
He's not great on the ball.
He said he was. Have we coached that out?
I'm not having any of that. Every time he kicks the ball, he toe pokes it. So I'm not hearing from him that he's a ball playing centre back. He's not been bad on the ball, to be fair, but he's just not looked natural. I'll give him that. But no, I'd say the only thing he's really struggled from is defending, sort of clearing headers and defending crosses. I think that's probably been one of his weaker sides, but he has players around him that are quite good at that, Mark Roberts being one of those names. So yeah, there's things for him to work on, but so far he's just been very refreshing in that back line. Whereas Dion was a lot better with the ball to feet, better dribbler of the ball. But I'd actually say Mengi was a better defender. And I think we have more chance of seeing Mengi return into Blues in the future than we would Sanderson, sadly. And it does sound, by the sounds of things, we could have had Sanderson back, but because Mengi's been so good, we've chose not to, which is obviously a shame, but that's football, really. As for Taylor Richards, was fantastic at League One level with Doncaster, looks the real player. But it's just annoying that we're signing players on loan who can't actually play for like a month after we've signed them. So it's like, why are we looking at injured players? Why are we splashing the very short wage bill we have on players that are injured? Like, don't get me wrong, he's a good talent, but right now it just didn't really make much sense. But I'm sure I'll eat my words when he does eventually play, because he from what I've seen, he does look like the real deal, but Championship is a big jump from League One, and obviously Academy football anyway. So we'll have to wait on that one. But overall, they were decent loan signings. And then Onel Hernandez, I think we all know the quality he possesses, and from what we've seen from him already, how much he offers in this squad. We'd have lost to Barnsley without him. I'm convinced of it. Realistically, his pace is electric. He's very much like Adama Traore in the way he shakes off players. It's like he's wearing baby oil down his arms. Like, he just squeezes through the tightest of gaps, and he'll take on 2 or 3 players and get past them all. So, no, it's refreshing. Definitely offers us something different, something we've needed, and he's clinical. So, and a likeable character, a proper Blues sort of cult hero character. So I look forward to seeing what Onel Hernandez has to bring. And obviously his contract runs out at the end of the season. So if we could find some pennies in the pocket, then maybe we could bring in a half decent player, which would be nice. So no, overall, the loan signings we got at the moment aren't too bad, but there are still improvements to be made. It does look like we're going to make 1 loan and 1 permanent before the January window shuts. And one of them will be a striker and more than likely a central midfielder. So we'll just have to watch this space, see what happens. But obviously we've been linked with Casey Palmer quite heavily. I don't know. I feel like that one wouldn't make sense from what on the technical football side of things are saying the sort of players they want to bring in. But, if Bowyer feels it would improve the squad, which it probably would, then we'll just go with it. But when they all come back from injury at once, including Chong, our team's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be a bit too late, wouldn't it? And they'll all
literally.
We'll build again. Carl, I'm just on that loan piece. I mean, it obviously isn't sustainable, but I think we sort of are where we are. But do you think they seem to be getting it right more than they're getting it wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that out of all the loan signings that we've had in, we could probably say there's only really been one dud, and that was obviously Castillo. They got that one wrong. And, I think, to be fair to Bowyer and Gardner, they've both said they got that one wrong. So, and it comes back to the losing face. They both held their hands up and said, that wasn't right.
I think Dodd is being kind as well. I've never seen someone so unnatural on a ball in my life.
I have a look at Peterborough on his right foot.
To be fair.
Without giving the lad disrespect, I'm not sure how he is at Chelsea. How he's a Chelsea player. I don't get it.
If he can be a fucking Chelsea player, I can be a Chelsea player.
Precisely. Me too.
I could wear this and still get in.
But you probably could for Blues, to be fair. But I think other than that, they have all been great. Generally, I mean, they've all given us something, and it is where we are. Unfortunately, it's not right. It's not sustainable, and it does mean that the transition or rebuilding or whatever fancy label they want to put on it is going to be harder, because not only are you losing all these loan players at the end of the season, probably, or sometimes during, as we have done, you're then trying to let players go, or our own players go. So you actually got to sign almost double the amount of players. You think the amount of loan signs we've got 4 or 5 now, I think it is, something like that. That's half a starting 11. That's half a first team.
We're only actually allowed one more. So
exactly. So that's half a team, but it is where we are. If it's what keeps us going and keeps us in the league for this season and all that kind of spiel, then we've just got to deal with it. But so far, I think they've been on, and I think, with the exception of maybe Cosgrove and Anike, well, Cosgrove wasn't a Bowyer signing, was he, or a Gardner thing, but with the exception of maybe Anike, who I think, like you said, we were all desperate for, generally the signings have been fairly spot on, and I think it will hopefully, let's touch every bit we're going, it will continue to be so. And I think we've just, with those two kind of maybe pushing that transfer policy, or even if it is mainly just guards, then hopefully we're going to get some more kind of unearthed diamonds in, basically. And I think something we just have to trust them for.
From again, the loan element is said it's got a very limited shelf life, because you're just churning out the same process season after season, and we'll see lots and lots of good players, and I do think they'll get it right, and I cannot wait to see the first Martin O'Connor central midfield loan signing, because I can promise you they will be exactly what we need, because the boy could play when he was obviously skipper at Blues for many years, came up the hard way, absolutely, just gets football. And while Sunjic has probably had one of his better seasons, he's still limited. And for me, the core of all of our problems just come out of a centre midfield. It's just not good enough, hasn't been good enough for a long, long time. So I just hope he can put his personality on that. But the one thing, and it is no coincidence, with Hernandez coming in and Mengi coming in, the one consistent with those two is just raw pace. And we've been screaming out for that forever. Like, literally, I can't remember the last... Aleko, he wasn't even quick, because he never really... It was like he was holding back all the time. With Hernandez, it's natural, and he is so quick, so direct. Keep high line to him, you are dead. And then with Mengi, even like you said, Tom, I agree, some of his decision-making is, because he's only young, it's going to happen, but he can recover because he's got pace. And we've been screaming out years. I literally cannot remember, and I really am... I literally can't remember somebody that's even close to it. So that, for no other reason, it just stretches teams, and I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic for us. I really do. But yeah, I mean, anybody, I literally can't remember anybody with that sort of electric pace.
I'm trying really hard.
I know, if they, I mean, honestly, and this is how old I am. Simon Sturridge, that's how old I am. He was the last person that I can remember that was actually good on the ball, that was electric and always going to cause problems. We've had quick players, but haven't really had the package. Whereas this lad, I mean, he's the real deal. And yeah, it always should be that you sign people on loan with a view to buy if they work. That for me is what the whole idea of loan signing should be.
Yeah, I think depressingly, the closest player I can think of that was a central defender with sort of any pace whatsoever would probably be Ryan Shotton, which is a bit disturbing. So yeah, that is really is as good as it gets. So no,
I mean, there is no.
We've never had any pace.
I think if anybody's sort of going to view this on YouTube, just put it in the comments. Just want a striker or a forward player that's anywhere near Hernandez, and the fact that none of us can really think of it.
Will
I mean, oh my God. Jesus, but there needs to be a level of talent in this as well. There's got to be some sort of control. We're not just after a sprinter. You've got to be able to play football as well. So, no, I'm really chuffed with the business they're doing. I've got a lot of faith in the way that we're structured there, and I think they'll bring somebody in between now and when the window closes that I think will just top us up and get us over the line. But I'm with you, Tom. When everybody's back, we could go and win the last 8 games of the season, and it's completely and utterly pointless.
It changes nothing, realistically.
No, he doesn't. But, maybe it gives him a little bit more collateral going forward, a bit more negotiation to go forward. So,
just quickly, before we move on from this topic, I've developed a very short mini game for you both to play.
That's good.
It's like a new feature for the podcast, a mini game.
Okay.
And obviously we keep mentioning that word rebuild, and you don't need to elaborate on this. I feel like we could elaborate on this topic in itself on future podcasts because there's still plenty of time for the rest of the season. But for now, it's called keep or sell. I will give you a name. You merely say the words keep or sell. So let's go for it. We'll start with Neil Etheridge. Keep or sell?
Keep.
Oh, John.
Keep.
Keep. Oh, I didn't know if you said anything. I thought you were debating sell. Fair enough. Maxime Colin.
Keep.
See, so far I've had 2 sells. It's quite sad. I just want a full-on whitewash of the squad. I want them all gone. I just want us to.
What Etheridge has done is have a decent first season, get COVID. It's a bit harsh.
I know, but I just feel like there's this losing mentality in the squad, and it just needs to go away. Just
come on, more.
Right, Christian Pedersen.
Sell.
Yeah, there we go. Definitely. There's so many you could go through. We'd be here for fucking ever. But Ivan Sunjic. That's an interesting one.
Sell.
I right now we definitely couldn't, but I would say sell next season.
I would say keep, because I think that. I'm not saying he's anywhere near the player we thought he was going to be, or maybe was when he first came to us. But he only scores bangers. Who else does that for us? Let's be fair. He scores.
But we always lose when he scores the bangers. They're unlucky bangers.
I mean, yeah, all right. That's not the point, though, is it? And I think he's one of those players who he's just running and running and running. And I think that with better players around him, I think his game gets better. And I think that you're right, there is the mentality in it, but I think there are other players from that middle of the park we should be looking at getting rid of before him, personally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we'll keep him for 3 or 4 years, just for the next couple, and then maybe sell at the end of next season or something. But I just think that he's not someone we should maybe build a midfield around, because I think that should be JJ for sure. But I just think he's just one of those players who he just gives you that bit of bite. And even when he came on against Barnsley at the weekend, he was just running constantly. And he might not have put in any crunching tackles, but he was cutting off passing lanes and things like that. So I would keep him for now.
Fair enough. I'll give you 3 quick fire ones. Scott Hogan.
Keep.
Oh, John's torn.
Now keep.
For now, yeah. Okay, I respect that. Ryan Woods.
Keep.
Oh, Carl's on the fence.
For now, keep.
For now, keep. Okay. 2 more. Troy Deeney.
can't ignore what he's done. I still think there's more to give. I'd probably keep him, but it's been disappointing.
Time is limited. Yeah, go on, Carl.
I agree. I think that we've not seen it. I mean, we've seen flashes. I think certainly the goal against Millwall, for example, that was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
But he is a quality player and he does finish well. So yeah, it's something I'd keep for now. And I swear to God, if the next one is Lucas Jukovic, we'll keep him. I like it. Anyone says.
I would not dare put King Juki in the mud. I won't give anyone the opportunity to put King Juki in the mud because he really changed our team the other day. Last but not least, I suppose you could look at this from more of a loan basis possibly, or sell him because he's a sort of an expensive asset. And that would be Jobe Bellingham.
I think we've got to keep him, personally.
To be honest, a big believer in if you never had it, you don't miss it. I don't know how good he could be. And I think if somebody came in 15 million, if it was different ownership, I would really then probably want us to think about it, because if we'd have a policy of reinvestment, then, like I said, it's still a bit of an unknown. I think, I hate to say it, but, JJ, there will be clubs, I promise you, sniffing around him. And for me, I've been, for a 17-year-old, Jesus Christ, I mean, fantastic. Second half against Preston, he's a player. Changed the game. Just by getting a bit further forward. He was doing the sort of the Sunjic busy closing down, do me a favour role in the first half, if that's football, kill me now. But second half, he was absolutely fabulous, just linking the midfield and the attack, sat in the pocket, fantastic. What Chong was doing at the start of the season, he was tremendous, but 10 million quid could come in for him, I reckon, in the summer.
It could.
This space.
I refuse to ever part ways with Jordan James because he's my favourite player.
No, I don't want him to go, far from it. But so the reason I say that, if somebody came in for same money for Bellingham or JJ, I'd get rid of Bellingham because we don't really know. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's
we've seen glimpses.
I'd keep JJ.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. But anyway, that brings the end of Keep or Sell. Hope you enjoyed the game.
Yeah, but absolutely. And but you need to add to this segment the next one we do.
I will. I'll create a new game next week.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay. So just quickly, mindful of a bit of time. Just thinking about I think Preston, Fulham and Barnsley as a collective. So 3 different types of performances, I think. Tom, just I guess top line through the 3 of them, just what were your thoughts without going into a huge amount of detail? But, we had obviously win, lose and a draw. Thoughts?
I think the loss was kind of expected. Fulham are battering anything that's put in front of them at the moment. So I wasn't really that downhearted, and we scored 2 nice goals. We move on. The draw. I thought we were terrible for 80 minutes and then turned it on in the last 10 minutes. And that was pretty much down to the 3 substitutions. Great to see Hogan get on the score sheet. That was the biggest positive. But I actually think we could have won the game in the last 5 minutes or so. We had that many chances. But overall, throughout the course of the game, Preston were probably the more consistent side. But I'd take a point. That's the first point taken from Ryan Lowe since he took over at Preston. So I think that's a little statement in itself, which is good. I think that one you could probably take quite a few positives from Preston. And then as for the Barnsley performance, the best way to put it is we were bad. They were a lot worse. And that probably made us look good. I don't think Barnsley were completely out of the game. I thought they were well in it for most of the game. We just took our chances like we should against opposition like Barnsley. So, no, it was a big result, massive 6-pointer. We can, breathe a bit of fresh air. that we're not sort of concerned about that game. But there were certain players that if they hadn't featured, I think we'd have lost that game. So yeah, no, overall a positive victory, but still a lot to improve on.
Carl, your take out from those three?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom summed it up quite nicely. So I'll just like, yeah, what Tom said. I think it's good that Hogan scored 2 and 3. That, you know, I think Hogan, I think we said it before, is a confidence player. And that'll, you know, I think if he misses a couple of chances a game, his head drops, his effort kind of dries up. But he's scoring, and that's always good. I think, you know, Etheridge kept us in the game at Barnsley, if you think about it. I mean, they could have had 3 before we'd even scored 1. But I think, you know, that's what he's there to do, and he saved them well. And I think we then took our chances, you know, the more clear-cut ones when they were there, which is something we've not done. I think Fulham, despite me trying to be clever and put a 1-0 Blues win bet down for a ridiculous amount of money, yeah, I know, that went well very quickly. I think that we all kind of thought we were going to lose. It was a case of by how much. So I think that should be looked at as a bit of a, you know, they're battering everyone. We scored 2, which was better than Reading, and we didn't concede more than 6, so we'll take it. And Preston, we probably didn't deserve the point on the whole 90 minutes, but the fact that we got it was a good result, I think, for me personally.
Yeah, I think the Preston game, it's the only real, well, one of the criticisms of Bowyer, just way too pragmatic against a side that, you know, it's not Man City. You know, you don't need to shut up quite as much as we did. And then to have a real step change second half where we came out of our shell, but they weren't creating a ton of chances because we came out of our shell. It was just, we were on the front foot and had to defend more, you know. And I just wish at times he just maybe get a little bit more on the front foot. But, you know, a point away from home is always good. And as Tom said, Preston in decent run of form. Fulham, yeah, I mean, we're just not ready for that.
That's the best way to put it.
We're not ready for that. I mean, to be honest, for the first time for a long time, I looked at the side an hour before kickoff, and I thought, okay, you know, it's going to be tough, but, you know, damage limitation. And I forgot we were playing. That's how much it actually meant to me. I'm fucking 10-10. I'm like, oh yeah, wonder what I'm 6-2. Okay, cool. And then Barnsley was a must-win, wasn't it? And you know, there was some Djukovic's again just changed the dynamic a little bit. So yeah, I mean that bloke, Christ, he's done more for our club than, you know, you know, just so well, mate. You if you just take him as a influential player over the last decade, there ain't many better or that have done more. Because, you know, he started off the whole Bowyer regime, didn't he? When he was picked, which always helps. But no, I think that fair play to him. You know, I'm really chuffed that he's got back in and he's adding value, which he is. Which leads us, I guess, on to Christ's side with a worse defence than us that are coming thick and fast at the weekend. So just on the game, just looking forward, you know, Peterborough and Derby. Derby in a false position, obviously, because of the points deduction. But Peterborough, for me, we owe them one. They shattered our false hope at the start of the season when we all thought we were going to be top 6. And they obviously exposed our system, I think is probably the best way of putting it. And I don't think we've really been the same since. So, Carl, thoughts on the weekend? We'll grab, as Tom's now introduced his new section. We'll bring one back on the dream pick, which you can throw into the mix. So just thinking about the game, expectations, any major changes to the lineup from the Barnsley game, and round it off with the dream pick.
Yeah, it's always tough, isn't it? Because it's do you change it up or do you stick with the winning lineup? I think for me, I would stick with what we've got. We're at home, we've won. and it was it'll be 3 days, I think, past our last victory. That is going to continue on a high, because it's only a few days ago. So I would go with the same team, same starting 11 for Peterborough for me. Derby, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of changes, but again, that depends on who comes back, and things like that. I would genuinely love to see George Hall back in the squad. That would be my dream pick for one of the 2 games, or both, because I think he was really, really good against QPR, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I think he probably did enough to warrant that sort of, further experience of being in the matchday squad. So George Hall back in the squad would be my dream pick. Wouldn't change the starting 11 for Peterborough. I'd say let's go for it. It worked against Barnsley. I would say Barnsley are probably on a level with Peterborough this season for how they play and how bad they have done over the course of the season. If it works against one, it's probably going to work against the other. They tore us apart when we tried the wing back, so let's not do that. And then go to Derby. I think that whoever that team for Derby depends on who comes back between now and then, I think. Because I think Graham is probably back now, isn't he? He was in the squad. So I think there might be changes for Derby, but I'd keep it the same for Peterborough.
Tom?
I echo most of that, to be honest. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's obviously slightly scary that the team we were playing on Tuesday night literally obliterated us 3-0. Pretty sure that was actually their last clean sheet. So says a lot of how bad they are, apart from when teams like that play us. So, I'm nervous, but realistically, we should be taking 3 points against Peterborough. So I am going to predict us to edge it 1-0, a 1-0 victory, hard fought, and I'd be happy with that. I'd take anything at the moment, to be honest. As for Derby, they're fighting really hard, and I feel like on paper, it could actually be their last game, if things don't change the way that they're heading. I just think they're going to be up for it more than we will. And I'd like to think we might be able to get a point, but my heart is telling me I think we'll lose that game 2-1. So I've given you 2 predictions there. And then a dream pick for both will always be Jordan James for the rest of my life. So there we are.
I guess for what it's worth, I think we will. I think we'll have a good day against Peterborough. I think there's there's a bit of payback there. I'd take Pedersen out and put Friend in at fullback. The more I see Pedersen, the more I cannot believe he's a liability for me. And that's he just gets himself into. He's so left-footed. It's beyond me how anybody that's a professional footballer can be so one-footed, and he gets into loads of trouble. He switches off. He's still got the residual Dean effect. I've no doubt about that whatsoever. So I'd cast him out, and I'd bring Friend in because I really like Friend. Really, I'm pleased Woods is back in. I think he gives us something. He hasn't been great, or as good as we all thought he probably would be. And I think Hernandez, Hogan and Djukovic are going to cause anybody an absolute ton of problems. And then, so I think we're going to do a 3-1. Derby is a tougher assignment. But again, it will catch up with them. I think they've been living the dream now, and fair play. They've got themselves into position, but I think we'll do them as well. I think we're getting some really good players in. And as I said, the additions have made a massive, massive difference for the Blues. So I think we beat them 2-1. And then all of a sudden, we're in a fantastic position, and we can just focus on getting as many points as we can. If we can get up to the heady heights of 13th or 12th, then we can focus on really hone in on the owners and try and get some answers, I think, going forward. So we will see. So I guess on that note, very positive. Tom, thank you for joining us in your tremendous outfit and adding a new segment to the proceed. And to be fair, mate, you could run that segment every week, and we'd be buying and selling a lot, or keeping and selling a lot.
To be honest, we probably would change weekly.
Yeah.
I'm sure next week you'll all want to sell Etheridge after he's dropped about 3.
But it's now, isn't it? I think if we had the ironically the lone player, if he wasn't injured, then I could quite happily sack him off. But we are where we are. And Carl, thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, always a pleasure, mate. Believe it or not.
I know. Well, right. Put the balls right there, and great to be back on. And as I said, please put your comments, YouTube or anywhere else where you're consuming this, and we'll be back. That is for certain. And I think from the three of us, massive thanks to everybody that are really making the difference. If nobody complains and nobody makes their voices known, then nothing will change. And I can promise you, there would have been a few sleepless nights amongst a few people on Saturday. And like I said, if I know blues, which I think I probably do, this ain't the end, it's just the start. So I hope they enjoy it this coming weekend. So on that note, keep right on, stay safe, and let's look forward to a fantastic 3 points at the weekend. Cheers, bye.